Welcome back to Edgeworth, presented by FanDuel as part of the Hammer Betting Network. I just lost So Money here. He was with me a second ago. The intro finished playing and he was gone. Here he is, joined here today by So Money Sports after a brief hiatus last week with the conference finals wrapping up. So Money, we got our rematch. I think the rematch we pretty much expected very early in those conference finals. The rematch had almost looked inevitable at points throughout the playoffs. And here we are. History maybe will repeat itself with, either way, history, it feels like is going to repeat itself. Either Florida beats Edmonton again in the cup final, or we have, there's been a lot of talk about how Gretzky did it and then Crosby did it with the last two rematches, and team that lost the first one won the second time. So either way, history will repeat itself in this year's Stanley Cup final. Are you happy that this is where we got to after these long playoffs?
I am. I think it's going to be outstanding. And after it took a roundabout way, I guess it was always meant to be a rematch here. So, and Matthew Tkachuk's words came true last year in the handshake line. So, ready to go. I think it's going to be a great series. There's some differences between the teams last year that we'll get into. There's some things that moving forward, I think that we'll be able to take advantage of. But yeah, ready to go now. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go indeed. I'm very, very excited for this one. I don't want to dwell on the past because we have a great cup final to get to, as you said. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, big matches to break down, a ton of markets, Conn Smythe, cup handoff, all that sort of stuff like we talked about on Twitter yesterday. So we will get to all of that. Before we do, I do want to talk quickly about the conference finals. We had a bit of news coming out of the Stars one in that game. Was it game 5, game 6, game 5, game 5, the clinching victory for the Oilers. I wanted your take as a goalie guy. So DeBoer pulls Ottinger, which I was stunned when he got pulled after those two goals went in. Obviously, it was a decision that he made, and you're just going to be like, okay, like whatever, you kind of live with it. It was the comments after the game that really were like, okay, whoa, you're going to pull your goalie. That's one thing. To say what he said, just very matter of fact, frankly, kind of throwing him under the bus. I really wanted to hear your take on that because I know it's been a pretty big story that's going around coming from those. That was the last time we had hockey, actually.
Yeah, so I think we need to separate two issues here, right? There's the on-ice issue with Ottinger's performance and the coach's decision to take him out, and then the off-ice stuff, which impacts the team moving forward. On ice, as a coach, if you feel that the goalie was not playing up to his expectations, you're obviously well within your rights to pull him. No problem, right? It was weird, the timing of it, because he was going back on the ice, right? Like usually when the timeout starts, that decision is made that, okay, you're being pulled. You let the Casey DeSmith already knew because he was in the tunnel getting ready. So like the decision was already made. So he's in the tunnel getting ready while Ottinger is going back onto the ice, right? So or taking back his net. So that was with the timing. On ice, this Dallas Stars team has shown they're able to come back in games quite often, right? It was 2-0 at that time. So I'm not sure why you're not giving yourself the best chance to come back in that game. Clearly, Ottinger come back in that game, and you've made comebacks all playoffs. So why are we panicking right now? It seemed like a very panic move on ice. So on ice, I didn't agree with because it was a panic move. Off ice, and the way it was done as well wasn't great. And then of course off the ice, you did basically throw your goalie under the bus, right? So especially not even insinuating, but like explicitly saying that the other team has his number. He cannot beat the other team. What happens if they play in the playoffs next year, right? That's a distinct possibility, right? So like, and now you've created this whole distraction, right? So I didn't understand the comments at that time.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It sounded like a coach that probably knows that he's getting canned, and at this point, and I mean, at this point, I would be I'd be all in favor of that. I mean, like you just I don't know how you move forward, and especially when coming into this year as well, we looked at this Dallas team and we talked about this as this could be a step back year for this team. They have an
Mhm.
expiring contract in Ben. Obviously, you're not gonna do anything with that. You're gonna let that contract expire. They have questions on defense that you probably need a year to handle when you get the cap space the following year, which is going to be this summer. So we did expect the Stars to take a step back, yet they made the conference final, right? So they are ahead of where they should be at this point, and I would have expected them to take the next step next year. And now I don't know if I can do that when you've created this whole distraction around the team, and also probably going to be next year as well in the playoffs. Yeah, we have to, but at this point, I'd be I'd actually be surprised if he comes back next year.
Yeah, so would I. I agree with you. It does feel like a guy who just was frustrated, felt defeated, been there as in the conference finals so many times and just can't quite get past that step. It felt like a guy who was just very frustrated with the situation and just was kind of taking that out and lashing out and knew that it's probably the end of the road for him anyways. And he was going to take a couple jabs on his way out. He's also a guy who's been historically very critical of his goalies. Has always had a short leash with his goalies, but he's very, very hard on his goalies, and that held true there. So it is what it is. Obviously, he kind of made his bed. I do think he's done an incredible job with that Stars team. I do think, though, at this point, they need someone else to get them over the hump. He's gotten them very far. They've come a long way, and they've been a really, really great team under DeBoer. And now it's like sometimes you need someone to get you there, and then you need someone else to get you over the hump. That's kind of what it was for Florida, where like they had Brunette get them to, Brunette dragged them from down here to up here, right? And then it was just they needed someone to get them to break through that ceiling, and that was Paul Maurice. But I don't know if Paul Maurice necessarily, if he came in a few years earlier when they were still bad, I don't know if Paul Maurice is the guy to get them to where they are today, right? So sometimes you need the kind of combination of coaching to help, help pull a team to the final destination, I guess you want to call it. But speaking of Paul Maurice, that was the other story coming out of the conference finals. The whole handshake line stuff, deciding to talk to Brindamore and keep him out of the handshake line, keep the coaches out of the handshake line because it's about the players, apparently, which is just stunning to me. This is never something that he's done before. And this is not like you're sitting there talking to again, this is probably a bad example, but like someone like John Cooper, who, never played in the league, anything like that, like whatever. There's a lot of guys, other coaches I could use in that example. John Cooper's obviously a guy who's won a few cups and everything. No disrespect to him, but like this is Rod Brindamore, who has won a cup and has been through many, many handshake lines as a player. Has had some really nice moments as a coach as well in handshake lines and as a player in handshake lines with other coaches. It felt like, where are you getting off? Telling Rod Brindamore this. I do love the whole Maurice shtick. I love his, quips and everything with the media. He's hilarious oftentimes. This felt like a step too far, and I was like, oh, it was almost just cringy. I was like, oh, dude, like, come on, no, like you got it. He's so good at towing that line, and it felt like he just completely lost sight of it with that.
It was so cringe. I think that's probably the best way to say it. We like Maurice in interviews. We think he's very eloquent, well spoken, very insightful, thoughtful as well. And he takes his time when he answers questions. He really gives you good insight into things, right? That's great. And apparently he likes to hear himself talk as well. It's gotten to a point where, it comes across as very self-righteous, right? Just a couple of series ago, you were in the handshake line, right? And the funny thing is that I don't even disagree with him in a, like, I think that if the coaches want to line, they should be, right. There's a lot of connection with players across the league. Coaches know their players. It's a small league, right? A lot of people know each other, and sometimes You wish the guy good luck going forward. You talk to the coach, right? There's a lot of nice organic moments during a handshake line between coaches and players. I don't think that, with all due respect, some random guy in a suit who's been sitting upstairs comes downstairs at the end of the game for the handshake line. Yeah, he probably shouldn't be in that line, right? But the coaches and players, I think, is totally fine. And if the coaches decide they do feel like Maurice, that's fine too. Then don't be in the handshake line, right? Like go shake the hand of your peer, and then go in the handshake line. There's no problem with that either. But to come out and say afterwards and like start almost like it was very preachy to me, which like immediately turns me off in like any situation. Like don't preach and don't be self-righteous. All right. So it really came across like that. And then the timing of it as well. If they spoke before the series, if Maurice felt this way, and him and Rod talked about it, and like it was mutually agreed to or not mutually agreed to, that's fine. As long as you had that conversation with the way you felt before the series, no problem. But to do it at that point when your team just lost, and now I'd be livid. My team just lost, and now I have to sit here with this guy like preaching his self-righteous shit on me right now when I just want to get the fuck out of there, right? Yeah. So like I'd be livid, right? So I thought that actually Brind'Amour handled that very well. So yeah, I don't get it, right? It's just one of those things where the timing was off, and I don't know what changed the last couple of weeks. He was there in the Tampa Bay series, so he wasn't there in the Brew Bay series. I'm not sure what that story was, but maybe they agreed to it, maybe they talked about it. I have no idea, right? But yeah, this was just, you're right, it was very cringe here.
Yeah, the timing of it, that's a good point. If you could have had that conversation anytime, and that makes it feel like it's almost for the cameras a little bit too, where like you're going to sit there and pull him aside and talk to him for 30 seconds, 40 seconds after he had just lost. It's like, oh, dude, pick your spots a little bit better. But nonetheless, we will see if he shakes McDavid's hand after the Oilers win in 6 in this Stanley Cup final. Speaking of the Stanley Cup final, I want to get to that now because we do have a lot of stuff to get to. I want to preview this matchup and talk about all these different markets. Before we do, a reminder that the Stanley Cup final runs through FanDuel, your home for live bets, with new features like live SGPs, build a parlay, any game, any period, or stack multiple matchups onto one slip with same game parlay plus. And what's better than the Stanley Cup? Stanley Cup hockey overtime. Get more from the game with live overtime markets. Right now, new customers can kick off the season with 200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just place any $5 bet and you'll get 200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download FanDuel today and get more with North America's #1 sportsbook. Please play responsibly. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC, or 19 plus and physically located in Ontario. Bonus issue is not withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-866-531-2600. Visit connexontario.ca. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, so money, here we go. The Stanley Cup final. We have finally arrived. Right now on FanDuel, the Oilers are -122 to win the series, to win the cup, I should say. The Panthers +102. We saw the market open in a somewhat similar range to where it is right now. We saw Florida take a lot of money early on, and that was thrown back in the face of the Panthers bettors and then some, as it is swung the other way. Oilers have taken a little bit of money technically now since the open, but as limits have increased, we've just seen more Oilers money come through. On some of the market making books, we are seeing them as high as close to -130. So definitely some Oilers support after some early Panthers money. Look, if you've been watching this show here before, I don't think we have any first-time viewers at this point in the Stanley Cup final. You've watched the show before. You know where we kind of lie right now with these teams. So money, I will give you the floor here first. Why Edmonton?
Why Edmonton? I think you have to go back to last year and kind of see why they lost, and the strides they've made moving forward, getting to this point. I've said this often. Playoffs are not necessarily about the best team winning. It's about who is healthier at the end.
Hmm.
Um, Last year, the Oilers didn't have Evander Kane, or they had a diminished version of him, and we saw what he had to go through in the offseason, and he missed the whole season. Draisaitl was limping.
Yeah.
Um, they were a banged up team, right?
They
And
were
like those
very
two
banged
are,
up on the blue line as well.
yeah, absolutely, right. And like there's elements there that are different this year. Now it's a little bit flipped in the sense that we don't know what's wrong with Kachuk. Clearly, he's hurt.
Yes.
And they have other guys there that are clearly not 100% because they're not playing the same way that they usually play, right? So it's unfortunate, right? It's very rare that you have two teams that are completely healthy going up against each other. And here again, we do not have two teams that are completely healthy going up against each other. One of the strengths of Florida is that they can wear you down as the series goes on because of their physical play. The problem becomes, what if you're not capable because of the aforementioned injuries of getting to that level? I think as the series goes on, that could become a problem for the Panthers. I like the demeanor better of the Oilers this year. I think that nobody's going to admit to it right now. Maybe someday in somebody's book they'll talk about it. But last year in the finals, I think that the lights may have been too bright for the Oilers. We saw Draisaitl taking roughing penalties at the end of games. Um, we saw like a team that just wasn't ready for it.
Hmm.
And McDavid alluded to it a little bit when he said that their mindset is different. It's status quo. They're a lot calmer, which which begs the question. And like my follow up question was that, so it wasn't like that last year, right? If you're saying that it's like that this year, what was the difference last year, right? So that
Hmm.
makes me think that it was more emotional last year. It was they weren't used to getting to that point, and I think that manifested itself on the ice as well until the Oilers got going in that series. But by that time, it's too late, right? It was too hard to beat that team 4 straight times. So I think there's a lot to be said about the mindset. Speaking of mindset, you cannot talk about Oilers mindset without talking about my boy Stuart Skinner.
Hmm.
Um,
Our boy.
he's a gamer. He's a gamer, right? He's I I really need that guy to get his ring um, so that personally I can be completely vindicated with him, right? In the sense that like I've never felt he's been a problem on like a broader sense. Yes, individual games, game one, game two, you might get the bad version of him, but as the series goes on, he's always shown he gets better. And even last year for the whole finals, I thought he was totally fine, right? So I think that I would expect him to be a lot better this season, this in this finals, and there's no reason for me to think he won't be. And then you want to talk about the Oilers penalty killing. Ekholm back helps
Yeah.
tremendously,
Massive.
and it yeah, and like you have Nurse out there killing penalties. I don't know if that's going to change, but it does help you a lot when you have the option of getting the early minutes to Ekholm on the on the PK as opposed to Nurse getting them. And then again, what I always say about the defensemen that come in and out, it's not necessarily about the player itself. It's about the minutes allocation. And Ekholm, I think, is going to cushion a lot of minutes there for the Oilers there.
Yeah. I you can't even put into context just how much it means to have Ekholm back there. He is, we've talked about this before on the show. We said this in the regular season. A month ago, we were sitting here in like February, March, when he got hurt and saying like, that is probably the third best player on that team after McDavid and Draisaitl. And now the competition is a
Yeah.
lot fiercer because this is a much deeper team. But I mean, this is having him back and having him looked healthy, which he does look healthy right now. At least they were really, really cautious about not bringing him back too early. I'm sure he's still battling something a little. I'm sure he's definitely not 100%, but he's good enough where he can have a significant impact on this series. And getting him back is going to shore up their one weakness for sure. Just to your point about like the mindset, I fully agree, and it's another thing that's hard to contextualize, and it is something that is maybe a little narrative-y and whatever, but there's truth to the narrative. We did see, like Charles says in the chat, Florida needed a year to make the Stanley Cup final, and they got humbled in the Cup final before they were able to learn this is what it takes to win at this stage. Edmonton got that taste last year. We saw it with teams like Vegas, who had to reach a Cup final before they won. We saw Tampa have to reach a Cup final before they won. These teams, you know what, there's something to be said about being there and learning and growing from that. I think that we definitely saw how much Edmonton has grown from that. We saw how much they've changed their style of play, and I'll get to that in a bit too. But it seems like that was a massive learning experience for them in that Cup final last year, those 7 games. And look, they not spotted, but I mean, they gave the Panthers a 3-0 series lead and still almost got that home. And this is a better version of this Oilers team. And you could argue this is a better version of the Panthers team as well, if you want to. And I wouldn't necessarily push back on that either. I think it's a little bit of a different version, though, just the way they're kind of built on that back end. Florida, a little bit less equipped, I think, this year to handle Edmonton because they don't have the same puck moving ability on the back end like they did last year with losing Montour. That is, I think, a significant one. And they're still very, very good. Obviously, they bring Seth Jones in and stuff, but like there's just a little bit of that element that is gone that was there last year. And we saw how Edmonton has now since adapted their play. They play faster. They play heavier. They are tenacious, and they have everyone swarming the puck. They basically saw how Florida played, saw how effective it was, and we're like, we need to replicate this because they do play a lot more like Florida than they did last year. Last year was a very different style of play, and credit to Knobloch for noticing that as well and making the adjustments needed. But yeah, they play very, very, very smart hockey and very, very tenacious hockey. They're very Florida Panthers-esque in that regard. And I mean, you talk about that change in approach and like the way they're built now on the back end. I think it makes the matchup a very bad one for Florida because the way Florida is so effective is they're going to get in your face, they're going to rattle you early, and that will eventually wear you down over the course of a series. Well, you get in Edmonton's face, you try and rattle them, you're going to be taking penalties early on. We've seen them in every series at this point take a lot of penalties, very undisciplined early on in series. Edmonton will make you pay for that. Edmonton will absolutely make you pay. That is not a team that is going to sit there and waste their power play opportunities time and time again. They're a team that's going to come out there and punish you for that. And the other reason I think this is kind of a bad matchup is that Florida is most effective when they're getting pucks deep and wearing you down and banging bodies and forechecking you and cycling you and just wearing you down. Edmonton is so good on the blue line at going back and retrieving pucks. They are elite at retrieving pucks and moving them up the ice quickly to avoid getting hemmed in their end. That's going to really neutralize that Florida Panthers forecheck. And I'm not saying that they're not going to have a forecheck and it's not going to be effective at all, but it is not going to be as effective as we've seen it in past series. I think Edmonton is very, very well suited to handle it right now. So I do agree with the Oilers money. I do have some Oilers stuff from previous before the series. I did add some Oilers stuff coming into the series. Obviously, the one kind of concern here is the penalty kill. But like you said, getting Ekholm back, I think, really neutralizes that a little bit. And the other thing is Florida's been so efficient offensively, where like the Oilers are a lot more prolific in terms of chance generation, but Florida's been very, very efficient at taking their chances. I don't know how much you can rely on that to continue at the same time, especially with the way Edmonton defends so well as a team. Everyone's kind of bought in that regard. If they're able to keep scoring on, at the rate that they are, then credit to them. But that is something that is hard to maintain, especially as the competition gets tougher and tougher deeper into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point. So I agree with you. Not much to add there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Oilers in 6 in this one. It's not obviously gonna be straightforward. The one thing we know about Florida is they're not gonna go down without a fight. They're going to make this they're going to turn this into a street fight if they need to. They will go down swinging any which way they can. They will turn this into a fight. So I don't think it's going to be straightforward. I do think that it just feels like you've watched McDavid and Draisaitl now for the last month or so. It looks different. It really does look different, and it's not just them. Obviously, it's the whole team that is chipping in here. But like the mindset of these guys, it just feels like every time they need a big moment, they're getting it. They're so composed in every situation. They're falling behind in games early on in the playoffs. They're falling behind every single night. There's no panic in them. They're blowing leads, and they're still, finding ways to win those games when they do. There's just a real calmness about this group and a real confidence about this group. And obviously, this is an incredible Florida Panthers team that they're up against, but this feels like the year Edmonton and McDavid get their cup. So that leads us into the Conn Smythe market, because I want to talk about this as well. Obviously, last year it was almost like a bet on McDavid. Conn Smythe is a bet on the Oilers in the series, and that basically was the case, because obviously, as we have now learned, McDavid won the Conn Smythe without them even winning the series. So I don't think that's the case this year. I don't think betting on McDavid to win the Conn Smythe is betting on the Oilers to win the cup at just a slightly cheaper price. I think there is a very, very, very realistic pathway here for Leon Draisaitl to win the Conn Smythe as well if the Oilers win. And I've been betting some Draisaitl, and I keep adding some Draisaitl, and I don't know, maybe you can talk me out of it. Maybe you can tell me why I'm wrong here, but like they're neck and neck in points right now. I think Draisaitl's one fewer point, one more goal. I mean, I do think there's an element of like voter fatigue that comes into play with this stuff. Like, and it's not like McDavid's obviously McDavid, but like, with him winning it last year on the team that lost, you look at the season that Draisaitl has had, the playoffs that he's had, the big moments he's had, he's really emerged as not like McDavid's running mate, but like as like he's right there with McDavid as like the co-best players in the world, I guess you could say. It feels like I'm not saying he has just as realistic a chance to win this as McDavid, but he's got a better chance to win this than these odds are implying. And the gap between McDavid and Draisaitl certainly isn't as big as is reflected here on this leaderboard on the screen.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense of when you're talking logic, right? That like the gap is not that much between the two when you're watching the games. But the problem that Draisaitl has is that McDavid has had the more impactful moments, and the moments that are more viral, right? That's unfortunately that's a lot of what goes into these votes. I don't necessarily think that there will be voter fatigue after 1 year. I do think that it when people vote, there's emotions with people. People are emotional, and I do think that there will be an element of McDavid won the Conn Smythe on the losing team. He does need a Conn Smythe as a generational player on the winning team as well. So it'll take something out of this world in the Stanley Cup final for Draisaitl to win, and I'm talking about at least 3 of the 4 wins theoretically that the Oilers get, where Draisaitl scores a game-winning goal, right, or a couple overtime goals. Like something has to be something has to be drastic, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. We've seen Draisaitl score overtime goals. We've seen Draisaitl's big moments as well, right? So it could happen. I just think that it's too much of an uphill battle when for Draisaitl to not only get the performance on the ice that has to be transcendent, but also fighting through kind of the like the, what do you call it? Like the McDavid aura, for example, right? So like right. I think it'll be tough battling through both of those elements for Draisaitl to win.
We have talked about recency bias though in this award, especially. I think like everything that's happened up to this point has happened, and it's there's still a lot to be written, and those are the memories those are the moments that are going to be more lasting. Where like if Draisaitl has one or two of those, and Oilers win this one in 5 or 6, but like McDavid has one of those moments, Draisaitl has a couple that are like maybe the clincher or whatever, stuff like that, and then it's like Podkolzin who has a big moment, or these other guys that are kind of chipping in, which has been the case for much of these playoffs. I still think there's a pathway for him there. The Conn Smythe bet I like the most at this point, that just based on numbers, and I think is mispriced. But for me, I'm not getting too in on it because of the fact that I don't like the Panthers to win the series. But for me, it's Barkov. I think Barkov is being mispriced here. I don't think Bob should nearly be as favored as he is in terms of like within the Panthers team. I think Barkov is the man this year if they do win the cup. We saw how the voting played out last year. I can pull that up. I should have had it handy. But the voting last year was like Barkov got way more love. I remember the live odds were like, and obviously I had Bobrovsky and stuff like that, and I was upset about it and whatnot. But like Bobrovsky didn't even come close in the voting. I just pulled it up here. Bobrovsky had 7 points, 7 votes there. Barkov had 46. He was right there behind McDavid. So like voters obviously recognize Barkov's greatness and want to reward him for that. He had that, massive moment against the Hurricanes to win the series in Game 5 there. I think he's the guy where if Florida wins, he should be the favorite to win the Conn Smythe on that team right now. It should not be Barkov. It should not be Bobrovsky. So there is a gap in the market where Bobrovsky right now is plus 270, Barkov's plus 600. I think you could honestly argue that should even be flipped. And I'd also bet Sam Bennett 26-1 on FanDuel right now before I'd even bet Bobrovsky at plus 270. So I know you've got some Bobrovsky, but at much different numbers, and I think those are very good bets at the time. I think right now betting Bobrovsky at plus 270 is just is a very bad bet.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've got Bobrovsky from earlier in the playoff run, but if the Panthers win this series, like you need to think of pathways to teams winning, right? So if the Panthers win this series, it's because Barkov shut McDavid down, and I do think that Barkov is going to be matched up with McDavid a lot, and it's possible that he could shut him down, right? There's no guarantee that McDavid's going to go off in this series. And if that happens, then yes, that does open up the door for Barkov winning if the Panthers win, and that also opens up the door for Draisaitl as well. Maybe because of that, Draisaitl has his transcendent moment, right? So I think that those things we do have to take into account. But I do agree with you. I think that betting on Bobrovsky right now doesn't really make sense, especially because Bobrovsky has had his moments throughout the playoffs where we've kind of been questioning that, like, is this the start of the downfall? Credit to him. He's always bounced back and he's always had a solid game afterwards. But just those thoughts filtering in sometimes when you're watching kind of goes against him as well. So unless he has an outstanding series, which again is possible, I just don't think that his current number warrants a bet on him right now. I think that Barkov makes a ton of sense. I do agree with you with Bennett as well. I think that Bennett and Tkachuk should actually be flipped there. I would rank Tkachuk much lower than Bennett right now.
Yeah. And then there's some other markets in this Conn Smythe thing on FanDuel that I was looking through earlier. Position of Conn Smythe Trophy winner is juicy. It's not quite one of those suitcase bets, as Rob Pizzola puts it, but forward minus 350. I would lay that very comfortably, very, very comfortably. I did lay that. I would prefer some more of that if possible. I'm going to keep looking around and trying to add to my position there. But yeah, minus 350 I think is not short enough there on a forward to win the Conn Smythe. And then if you're looking to the nationality of Conn Smythe Trophy winner, I was looking through. I don't see anything really there. Finland plus 550, Barkov's plus 600 though. Canada minus 130. You've got McDavid at plus 100. I don't really, and then I mean you're getting base of McDavid and Bennett. I don't think that's enough to bump that. to minus 130. So I don't know if there was anything here that stood out, but nothing for me in the nationality. But in terms of position at Conn Smythe, I do like laying it with forward minus 350.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. And yeah, I don't see anything with the nationality here.
Yeah. Okay, let's do the cup handoff here before we get out of here. I know there's one guy that kind of stands out to me. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts, though, because this is one of those markets that I think is extremely, extremely, extremely hard to price. I do not envy the traders having to price this one because, like, we do not know what's going on inside those rooms. And this is one where I don't remember the exact example, so I'm terrible. My memory is horrific, but like we've seen some bigger numbers cash since they've started pricing this, where like you're kind of surprised that, oh, this is the first guy they handed it to. This guy's the first guy they handed it to. I do think it makes sense that Nugent Hopkins is the favorite right now because of how long tenured of an Oiler he is. He's been there through all this and the terrible times and whatever. I think he's far from a shoe-in to get it first, though. We don't know exactly what's going on inside that room. You know, guys are obviously talking and whatnot. It could be come as a surprise as to who could get it first. But, like, is there anyone here on this board that stood out to you when you were looking at it?
I mean, I think RNH should be the favorite. I think that makes a lot of sense. But then you go down the list of kind of Draisaitl, yeah, but he's priced at RNH. They're basically neck and neck. So like that makes sense, right? Maybe a guy like Corey Perry, right? Who's a veteran. He kind of added that like experience factor, that kind of little bit to like push the Oilers over the top theoretically if they win. I think he would make sense. He's probably 12-1. That's tough there. Is he there? I don't see him on the screen.
Oh, sorry, I can't scroll on that one.
Yeah. But and then and the other thing too is that is that Hyman as well, right? Like being injured, he's obviously well liked in that dressing room. We all saw the video of them FaceTiming or videoing him or whatever after right, and like what he means to that team. So Hyman, I think, could be a sneaky one as well. And so for me it comes down to RNH or Hyman here.
Yeah. I like Corey Perry a little bit in this market, honestly. I bet Perry. I'll probably end up betting more. I think it could. I'm banking on it being like the guys have obviously a ton of respect for him and what he brings, and he's still a gamer at his age. And the amount of, I know he's already got a cup, which maybe takes away from his taste here. It's not like he's one of those, what is now with Brown call them old guys without a cup. Yeah, exactly. So he's not one of those because he does have his cup, but that was a lifetime ago, and he has now been to like 5 straight cup finals and been on the losing end of them. I think there could be a semblance of like, hey, let's give it to this guy first, and then we'll continue with our rotation. So it's a big number, 32-1. I am going to be betting on Corey Perry as well. But yeah, I do think Nuge is the likely guy to get it first. But again, I think this is one of those markets that can kind of catch you by surprise. So 32-1, I'm going to take a little bit of a flyer there. I don't have as good of a feel for the Panthers. Charles seems to think that it's Schmidt. I think Bob is mispriced. He got it last year. I think Bob got it as like a, did win the Conn Smythe. We got it for that. He's also been around the league for a long time, one of the older guys. Do you think they would give it to a newcomer? Like Schmidt and Jones are the top 2 guys on the board here for Florida, plus 380 and then plus 800. I understand everyone else on this list for Florida has won a cup because they just won it last year pretty much. I mean, Nico Sturm didn't, and there's probably a couple other guys way down there that maybe didn't, but like anyone who matters who's on this list has already won a cup aside from Schmidt and Jones. Do you think it would be one of those guys or no?
Does Charles think it's Schmidt, or like is he laughing at Schmidt? I can't. Oh, they're here. No, I don't think it's Schmidt. I'd be shocked. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be Schmidt, right? So like,
I would be surprised.
and like I don't know why he's the favorite on the Florida side. Is he the favorite on the Florida side there? He's got the lowest
Yeah,
odds, right?
yeah, plus 380.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's plus 380. Then Seth Jones is plus 800, and then we get into like 12-1 Ekblad, 13-1 Marchand, 14-1
yeah,
Bob.
yeah. So like Schmidt, I don't think he's gonna get it. Seth Jones is too new. Brad Marchand is too new. Um, Bob got it last year. I think it's gonna be Ekblad, right?
Yeah,
If if Florida wins, I think that Ekblad is getting it, especially because of he did have to go through adversity this year as well. Um, Albeit you could make the argument it was of his own doing, but that's he had injuries as well, right? So
mhm.
I think that for Florida, Ekblad makes the most sense here.
Yeah, I agree. Ekblad is definitely the guy, especially with him being a pending UFA and his future a little bit in doubt.
Yeah,
I think that plays into it as well. I think that also kind of could play into it, like with Sam Bennett as well. 65-1 is like maybe he's had an incredible playoffs. If someone like Barkov were to win the Conn Smythe and like Bennett uh, comes very close and like has another great series, maybe they give it to him as like a parting gift as well if he's going to be gone next year. I don't think it's realistic. I don't likely think he gets it, but I think it's more likely than 65-1 that Sam Bennett gets the handoff first. So I'd play both of those. I'd play Blad and Bennett, but Edmonton's winning the cup anyways, so might as well just stick to some Edmonton guys here. Corey Perry for me. Corey Perry 32-1. I think. How would that work with Hyman? Hyman's gonna. I guess he'll be out on the ice in
in a suit.
his full gear, or you think in just a suit? I feel like you
Maybe.
got to put your gear on. I feel like you got to put your gear on and try and at least have that picture with that. We've seen guys come out like that before. No, I've seen that in the Champions League final. I remember John Terry at one point came out in full gear after not playing in the game whatsoever. Took his suit off and put his full Chelsea gear on to lift the trophy for when they won the Champions League.
Yeah, I think he'll be ready to go when the Oilers are up 3-1 with Game 5 at home. I think he'll be ready to go there.
And the room changing, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. All right. So money. That's about it. Do you want to talk about Game 1 quickly? Do you have anything in Game 1 based on where the market is right now? Oilers minus 132, Panthers plus 110. Totals bet down a little bit. We're mostly seeing sixes now. 6.5 minus 134 to the under on FanDuel. 6.5 plus 110 to the over.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that. I also want to talk about a couple of series bets.
Oh yeah, my bad. I meant to bring up the player stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, we can quickly touch on that. Okay, so here's the thing, right? There's a difference between a bet that I'm making based on the numbers that I see and what I think is going to happen necessarily, right? So, and like I like to bet into high variance stuff. So I don't think that this series is going to be a sweep, right? I don't think Edmonton's going to sweep them. I don't think Florida's going to sweep them. But there's a plus 900 and there's 10-1 out there on Oilers sweeping. I like that small, and I also like Oilers in 5. Again, I think that this series is probably going 6 or 7, but I do believe that the Oilers in 4 and Oilers in 5 is a little bit mispriced. So I did bet both of those. I like the Oilers in 5 a lot better than, of course, Oilers sweeping, but I do like them both. So I did bet those. Game 1, I think that I will bet the Oilers game 1, and I'm fine with the current price. I just think that there's a possibility for that number to come down a bit. So there's no upside for me betting that right now. So I will be on the Oilers game 1. Just gonna wait on the price a little bit. I do like that under, but it's not something that stands out for me. I think that we've touched on this before in series. Game 1s tend to become high variance sometimes, and as the series goes on, it will get tighter. But I think that it could be a little narrative-y, I get it, but I think that there's a strong consensus in that room about about getting off to a quick start in this series. And I think that from game one, I would expect the Oilers to bring it. And from game one, I think that Florida understands that they have enough experience that they know Edmonton's going to bring it, and then they can kind of see if they can absorb that first before Florida kind of gets into their game and their style of play as the series goes on. So I do think that we're going to see a quicker start from Edmonton this year. I think that they're good for game one, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, in terms of the total, 38 penalty minutes the Panthers have taken in game ones in the first 3 rounds. So I can see that's what they like to do. They like to come out and assert themselves physically. They like to try and send a message and get under your skin and rattle you and do whatever they can to throw you off your game. I don't think there's any reason to believe that it will be different in game one here, even though there is a familiarity between these two teams. After playing last year, I think it's going to be a very similar approach. So you can see a lot of power play opportunities, and that leads to some very high variance as well, especially in terms of the total. I think there's a pathway to there being a lot of goals potentially in game one. So, yeah, I'm going to stay away from the under, although I do think that there will be value on some of these unders as we get a little bit deeper into these series because, again, this Oilers team still isn't fully viewed as this defensive juggernaut that they have kind of become because they really have. And I know Skinner still scares people, but like Skinner's been great. So I think it's a case of like, it's a pretty rare case where here we are late in the season where there's about all the evidence you need to see of a team. And we're still not quite pricing the Oilers properly in terms of these totals. But for game one, just based on how I think the Panthers might approach it and how I think things could unravel, I'm not going to be getting on these unders just yet.
Oh, sorry. One more else that I played. One other thing I played on the series before I forget. Oilers minus 1.5. I played that as well.
Oilers minus 1.5. Just looking here on FanDuel, we have plus 172.
Yeah,
plus 172. Oilers minus 1.5. There you go. We are all Oilers here on Edgework this year. We have been. We have quickly flipped script after being all Kings early on. That's
new information.
You have to adapt. You have to adapt to new information. You have to be willing to adjust on the fly. Thankfully, we did, and hopefully it pays off. It's already paid off with some of that conference stuff, but
that's why I'm wearing this.
Yeah, that's
this is only reserved this is only reserved for the big hits.
Yeah, there we go. Game one goes on Wednesday night. Game two goes on Friday. We're not going to have a show before game two. We will have a show again next week. Monday is game 3, so we will be back on Monday next week again. I think that is June 9th for the next edition of Edgework. We'll have 2 games in the book by then. We can kind of reconvene, see where things are at, see if there's anything else we like. And as Charles asked, is that a real chain? So Money, of course, that's a real chain. Of course, that's a real chain. You can hear the plastic rattle up against itself. No?
No comment.
All right. Appreciate everyone for tuning in today. We will be back next Monday, June 9th at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Until then, enjoy the week. Enjoy games 1 and 2, and good luck on your bets.